lot of entrepreneurs think they have a marketing problem. They think they need a better website, more social media, a sharper logo, more ads, better SEO, or maybe just more content. And sometimes, sure, those things help. But what if the real problem isn't the tactic? What if the real problem is that the business owner can't clearly explain what they do, who they help, why it matters, and why anyone should care? That's where today's guest comes in. Welcome, or hopefully welcome back to The Reluctant Entrepreneur. Lisa Raebel is the founder of Raebel Girl Marketing, a revenue clarity strategist, speaker, podcast host, and author of The Raebel Girl's Guide to Marketing. Stop committing random acts of marketing. Her work is built around a powerful idea. Clarity drives revenue. When your message is clear, your sales conversions get easier, your marketing becomes more focused, your referrals improve, and your team starts rowing in the same direction. In this episode, as usual, we're going to break the conversation into two parts. First, we'll talk about Lisa's own entrepreneurial journey, including how she went from corporate sales and marketing into building Raebel Girl Marketing, and what pushed her into entrepreneurship and the highs, lows, and lessons she learned along the way. Then, in the second half of the show, we'll dig into Lisa's expertise. We'll talk about why so many founders commit random acts of marketing and why expert speak confuses customers, how to build a better pitch, and how entrepreneurs can stop chasing tactics and start communicating with clarity. My conversation with Lisa begins right now. Stick around. Hey, Lisa, welcome to the program. I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, as am I. So let's go back in our time machine, Lisa. Before Raebel Girl Marketing, what were you doing professionally?
Chronologically going backwards, I was a marketing director for a couple of organizations and worked for not-for-profit, doing events and marketing. And before that, I was doing corporate sales.
Okay. How did that experience, working in the professional marketing world, working in the corporate sales world, working in the corporate world, how did that help shape what you're doing now?
Well, I started out in sales because when I graduated from college, marketing didn't have a seat at the table yet. It was a necessary evil, you might want to say. It was not a lot of money in it, let's just say it that way. And so I went into sales because, well, I had to pay rent and I had car payment and had to pay back my student loans. And so what I found out, though, is that spending 12 years in corporate sales and then using my marketing degree later has helped me see how marketing and sales need to work so closely. Because when I was in corporate sales, I had beautiful brochures, but they didn't say anything. Or they talked way too much about the company and not enough about how the company solved our clients' problems. And so as I became a marketing director and as I started creating my own marketing as well as marketing for other organizations, I found that I saw it from a sales perspective, not from a marketing perspective, which makes it a whole lot easier for the salespeople to use.
Yeah, it's an irony that, back in the day anyway, marketing got no respect, didn't get the high paychecks. Sales took all the glory. Sales got the paychecks. But marketing drove sales. And I don't understand why executives didn't tie those two in together. It was kind of a black art. No one really understood it. So a few people would do it, but it was not, I don't know. It like you said, it was limited and it just didn't have any street cred. It wasn't recognized for what it really did. And that's probably because most companies, including the way my company used to run, was basically vomiting specifications and awards and accolades and stuff on brochures, thinking that would, everyone would understand that if we have machines that use pumps, and if our pump is 5 horsepower and our competitor's pump was 2 horsepower, well, they're going to go with us. So we would just push that. Yet our potential customers were going, I don't even understand why there's a pump in the machine. I don't even understand why I'm getting this brochure. It means nothing to me, right? There was no point of reference. And eventually, further down the sales process, it would make more sense. But for us to lead with that just made absolutely no sense. And for a long time, probably a good decade or more. I started the company out of my garage, so it wasn't hard to grow at first because, you know, the baseline was zero. So when I got my second order, I doubled my sales. When I got my fourth order, I doubled it again. Eighth order, I doubled it again. So I kept having experiences of doubling, doubling, doubling. But then it was like, okay, now we're growing 50%. Now we're growing 4%. Now we're growing 0.4%, right, as we got bigger. So we would just do more marketing. And what we thought was marketing, which was really just, you know, documented sales stuff, braggadocious, horrible, chest-thumping advertising that didn't land anywhere. And our business grew. But looking back now, I think it grew in spite of our marketing, not at all because of our marketing. It's just like if we were wearing red socks every day, if we wore red socks when we went to Vegas and hit a jackpot, I might think I'm going to go back there with red socks on because it had something to do with it. It was luck, right? Lucky rabbit's foot or something. Nothing to do with it. And I know that's true because when we stopped cold turkey. We just got tired of the sound of our own voice. And we just literally said, okay, this is madness. Stop. We canceled all ad contracts. We canceled all trade show exhibition contracts. And we just stopped. And guess what? Sales kept coming in. Sales kept coming. Our growth rate was untouched. It was still growing, not wide leaps and bounds, but, you know, respectable. And that's when I realized, what were we doing? We were spending, in our little company back then, we were spending $250,000, $300,000 a year in what we thought was marketing. And all we were doing was making noise. And we sold in spite of ourselves. And then we switched over to a concept I like to call conscious marketing, which is just creating value. It's education. Now we don't even talk about what we do specifically. We talk about the customer's issue. We're in the electronic space, and there's a very specific reliability issue that's happening in our industry, and very few people understand why. We know why. We have the solution, but we can't talk about the solution until we talk about the problem. And I've learned as a parent, I've learned as a business owner, I've just learned as a human that if I give you a bunch of facts and data and you come to the conclusion you need to buy this certain widget, you're going to fall on your sword over that. You're going to join the tribe. You're going to fight with management to get the budget approved for it. I don't have access to management. So I need you and I need to be on the same wavelength. Then you become our best salesperson. Our best salespeople are not our salespeople. And I'm glad they're not watching or listening. They don't listen to the show. But because they're great. I mean, they're absolutely awesome, but they're not our best salespeople. Our best salespeople would be you when you've hooked up with all of our education-based marketing efforts and learned something. And then all of a sudden you go, oh my God, the light bulb went off. You're right. That is the problem. Wow. Now you're the hero, and you're the subject matter expert in your company. And you can't do that with an ad that says, we got big pumps. You know, it just doesn't land.
No,
it doesn't land.
That doesn't work.
But very few people get that. And once you get it, you will never go back. But getting the industry to think differently about thinking differently is very, very difficult. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, 100%. Because the business owners are only thinking about the bottom line and closing the sale. They're not thinking about building their long-term relationships. So the people who are not your salespeople, who are your best salespeople, I consider those brand ambassadors. Those are the people who are out there shouting out your name, shouting out your praises, even though they are just there because they had a great experience with you. Yeah, and I do believe that, especially when I work with business owners and they come to that aha moment of, oh, it's not about me. It's about them. So what I say is that it might be your story, it might be your products and your services, and it might be your story, but it's their journey. So you need to take your potential customers and even your existing customers for upsell opportunities on a journey of why you're the best solution, not because you have the biggest pumps, but it's because you solve the problem long term. And I think that's what really people are looking for. They're not looking for quick hits. They're looking for, I need a partnership. I need somebody who's going to help me long term, solve the problems. I may not need the 5 pump now, but I'm going to need it when my company grows. So instead of buying a bunch of little 2 pumps, I can do this one thing. And you just tell that story in their terms because it's their journey.
Yeah.
Then that the relationship builds much faster. Your sales process is much shorter and your profit margins are actually much higher.
Yeah, I did notice that when we changed marketing strategies from braggadocious chest thumping ads and switched to education based, we attracted an entirely different type of customer. The first question, formally, if someone called, how much is your machine? Well, hello, who's this? It was just like let's get right to the point. Today, that's probably the 18th question someone asks. Because it's important, obviously. We're not going to sell it for $1 billion, but it's not what drives it. So we went from, with our braggadocious advertising, we went from very transactional sales, low margin, because we always got beat up on price. They all led with price, to relational sales. So we stopped the transaction and we went to relationship. And when there's a relationship, when someone's seeking advice, when someone's seeking knowledge, it's quite different than if we are seeking a sale. It's very different. And
completely different conversation.
Yeah. And, I've said this on the show before, our machines run on certain types of chemicals, and I am by no means a chemist, but I did learn a few things that are relevant to the space we're in. And one of the chemical laws, if you will, like the law of gravity, this is called the Hansen's law of solubility. What's that? It basically means like attracts like. So a certain type of chemical will attract a certain type of substance. It will not do anything with another type of substance. So if you want to, it's like oil and water. They do not mix. If you have a solvent, you can clean greasy things. If you have a soap, you can clean greasy things. If you just have water, the grease stays. It doesn't solubilize. Like attracts like. And I like to apply that philosophy to business. Like attracts like. If we're putting out braggadocious, chest-thumping ads, we're going to attract customers who are attracted to that. If we put out knowledge and education with no obvious call to action, just to educate, we attract customers seeking knowledge. And it's very different. Price is there, obviously, but it's not front and center. And they partner with us rather than transact with us. It's a completely different experience. Has that been your experience also? Have you seen those types of benefits, like the like attracts like?
Yeah. So what happens is in that particular situation, so when the braggadocious kind of marketing, I call it the show up and throw up. Like all you do is like talk about yourself and you don't talk about anything else. And
you're just vomiting specs and me, and all that.
Me.
Yeah.
What I find is that people who say what's called value-based pricing, and that's not mean like I'm getting a great value. It's like I understand the value of paying more. That's the kind of relationship that you're moving for. And so when I raised my prices, and I told my clients why, they're like, yeah, you probably should have been paying. Probably should have been paying that all along. It's kind of like, dang it, right? Missed opportunity. But they saw a greater value in paying the extra price than they did see in like going, well, that's just, too much money. They saw the value.
Yeah.
And so
they were already there.
Yeah, they were already there. And so when you build that relationship based on solving people's problems, then the price comes to that, is the 18th question. They've already seen the value of working with you. And so the price is secondary to understanding that you're going to solve their problems and solve their problems long term. And I think that's what we're really missing a lot in our marketing is we're not talking about how I'm not just going to sell you this and it's a short-term fix. Like how do we have long-term value? And so what I say to my customers is, when they're still a prospect is my favorite day is the day you fire me, is because I know I did my job then. I taught you to think like a marketer.
Right.
I taught you how to be a marketer for your own business. And and we go from there. And so when people say, I think we're done working with you, I'm like, awesome, let's break out the champagne, because I've done my job. They've seen the value. And I've had some customers who come, they've grown. And so they're like, okay, now we have a different challenge because now we're bigger. So what do we do next? And so they come back for the advice, even though they might have outgrown one of the services that I'm talking about. So for me, it's once they understand that you are providing additional services and resources to their organization that they don't have to learn themselves yet, then that's when price becomes absolutely positively secondary. And I've seen it in every industry I've worked with.
Yeah.
And I've worked with a lot of industries.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just mine. I think it's like a universal truth. It's just the way humans are wired. Did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur, or did you come into it reluctantly or through circumstance, or like a pinball on a pinball machine getting bounced off the bumpers, or how'd you get here?
A little bit of pinball, yes. So what happened was I knew I needed to leave the organization that I was working with. And I was thinking, do I want to go to not-for-profit, back to not-for-profit, or do I want to work for a for-profit? So I was at this women's retreat, and we had to ask one question as we walked this tile labyrinth. It probably takes 20 minutes to walk all the way to the circle and then out of the circle. And somewhere in between this for-profit, not-for-profit question that I had in my head, it turned to work for somebody else or work for myself. And I literally got in this big circle. It's probably like, 20 feet in diameter. And I stand at the edge of it, and the woman facilitating it, she's like, why aren't you leaving? I'm like, I don't like the answer, because I need to work for myself. And because what I realized is that when you work for CEOs who believe that their ideas are better than your ideas, even you're the marketing expert, and it fails and you still get blamed for it.
Right.
It happened a couple of times in a row, and I was just like, there's no integrity or honesty in this relationships. So I can control the honesty and I can control the integrity of the relationships I have with my clients. And so I did start Rebel Girl Marketing reluctantly. This is kind of funny. I interviewed 5 of my friends who are successful entrepreneurs. And I said, this is a stupid idea, right? I should probably just go get a job. They're all like, no, this is a great idea. And
you were probably almost hoping they'd agree with you, right? So you could just check it off the list. I looked into it.
It kind of was. 2 of them hired me on the spot, because what I talked about was that what's different about the way Rebel Girl is formatted is that I have a very gig mentality. I call myself the Nanny McPhee of marketing. I help my clients until they need me, and then I'm gone. Mm-hmm. And I'm not there for long-term contracts. I don't hand you a 99-page binder and say, good luck implementing this. I stay through till they go, we got this. Mm-hmm. I understand. I know what to do. I know how to talk to my customers. We've seen some success. I've got this, Lisa. Thank you very much. And so that mentality of this not having to be there long-term and being on the customer side and not trying to sell them things they don't need. God bless all the agencies out there. I have lots of agency friends, and I work with a lot of agencies with my clients as a liaison. But they're always trying to sell something that the client doesn't exactly need. And so, not always. There are times when they sell things that they don't need. And so I'm the person going, why do we need that? Why are we spending this extra money if that's not what the client needs? And so for me, I act as the liaison between the client and whatever marketing vendor they're working with, whether it's radio or billboards or, social media or digital or graphic design, whatever it might be. So it's really about helping them and not staying forever.
Yeah. Work yourself out of a job is in essence what
my
your goal
husband
is,
thinks I'm
right?
crazy, but that's okay.
Well, there's plenty of customers out there that need what you know. Rebel Girl Marketing, obviously a play on your name, but I think it means more than just a play on your name. What is rebellious about Rebel Girl Marketing?
So one of my core values is honesty. And so when a customer has a suggestion or they say something, I don't go, sure, let's go with that. I will think about it, and then I'll tell them either why it's not going to work or how to modify it so it will work. I'm not always saying no by any stretch, but there's a lot of times they're like, do you think this is what we should do? And it's like, no, that's not where your people are. Why would you spend the money there? And they're like, yeah, okay. And so that's one of my core values is just honesty. I give honest feedback. I'm never mean about it. But the rebellious part of it is this. The rebellious part is making sure that my marketing and my client's marketing doesn't sound like everybody else. What can we do to sound just a little bit different enough to make us stand out? And so the videos that I post for my own marketing have a little bit of edge to them. Not mean, but the one I did recently was about networking and about if you're only networking to get more leads, nobody wants to network with you. So just stop it. Like, you have to shift. And I've gotten so many responses about like, absolutely, that's true, 100%. Somebody finally needed to say it. But to make sure that I'm not sounding like everybody else and my customers are not sounding like all of their competitors. So be a little bit more edgy, a little bit more rebellious. Yeah.
What was harder than you expected in the early days of starting Rebel Girl Marketing, besides everything?
The legal aspect. That like the 12 years I spent in sales was corporate insurance. So I understood that, but it was the contracts that I had to have, because I don't have a product. I'm not handing you anything physical, but the contract aspect of it, just to have my errors and omissions and my professional liability intact, I had to have a contract. And so I thought that was very interesting that I had to, and I got it down to 6 pages from what my lawyer originally did, but it's still like, it's 6 pages of contract that doesn't make any sense to me. But again, that goes back to the business side of it that I wasn't anticipating. Because being a salesperson, that the sales didn't bother me, especially with proposals and stuff. I've done a million of them. But I think it's the legal side of that. And then the mileage tracking, I didn't like that at all. Luckily, there's like really great apps out there.
Good apps now. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, great apps. Yeah. It's all of that financial legal aspect. I didn't realize how complicated that would be.
How long has Rebel Girl Marketing been around now?
I celebrated 8 years earlier this year. So, yeah, 8 years as Rebel Girl Marketing.
How's that changed you in the last 8 years?
Well, interesting you should ask that. I'm actually changing the name of the company to Rebel Girl Revenue, because what I've realized, what I've done for my clients, it's so much more than marketing.
Yeah.
Because I do the sales, I help them with the sales training. I help sales and marketing talk nice, play nice in the sandbox. But I also do a client experience timeline to help find out where there might be some gaps, either during the client experience or internally where they're missing off, like handoffs once it gets sold, or onboarding or upselling, all of the things. And so it literally comes from all the way from the marketing to like, people need to know you exist, through the sales process, through the client experience, and then beyond. And so it's so much more than just about marketing. So it better describes what I do, which is helping organizations gain more revenue through marketing and sales and internal communications and the client experience timeline.
Interesting. Your book. Let's talk about your book. And I'm talking about this book right here. And for my listening audience, who's driving, like, what's he pointing to? I'm pointing to a copy of your book. The book is The Rebel Girl's Guide to Marketing. You talk about random acts of marketing. I love that term. What does that phrase mean, and why do so many business owners fall into that trap?
Because they don't think ahead. They don't think about, we're having a big sale in July, so in April, what do I need to start doing about it? They basically go, oh no, it's Monday, I need some social posts. What am I going to talk about this week? It's not strategic at all. It doesn't flow with the way that their business flows. And so it's a lot about being prepared. So the second book, which is a workbook right now, it'll be a book at some point, is called How to Feed Your Business. And I talk about how if you can create a menu or a shopping list and a menu, you can create a marketing strategy and a sales strategy, because it's about who you're feeding and what's on the calendar, and who's your audience, and what's going to be happening in the future of the business. So, with the podcast that I do, which is called Pitch to Purchase, it's about, I've got all the way things already planned through December, because it's based on how my clients buy in those months. And so it's about really thinking ahead instead of just commit, it's Friday at 5 o'clock. I don't have a social post. So before I go have a beer with my friends, I got to throw something out there instead of understanding what it truly means to the audience.
What was the
That's what it
motivation
means.
from a marketing perspective? What was the motivation of writing that book?
Being badgered by people in my mastermind, number one.
Okay.
But what happened was I probably got asked 12 times in a 8-month period, when's your book coming out? And I kept going, what book?
What book?
There's
I take it
no
you weren't
book.
working on a book.
I wasn't working on a book at all. But because I have all of these different trainings that I do, I have, defining your ideal client, and networking on purpose, and creating a power pitch, and all of these trainings that I do. Each one of those trainings is basically a chapter in the book. And so it was not difficult to write the book. Believe me, this is not Shakespeare. This is very conversational. It sounds like the way I talk to my customers. And so it's very easy for business owners to read it and go, oh, this is what marketing means. Or, oh, this is what it means to coordinate sales and marketing. Oh, this is what it means to go out and network, instead of just showing up at random places and every once in a while to have a strategy behind it. So it all comes back to the strategy instead of being random acts of marketing, because marketing is the nutrition that feeds your business.
Yeah.
And that's how that all came about. But after like the 12th person asked me, I'm like, fine, I'll write a book. So it was great. I actually really enjoyed writing it.
We'll have to change the name of the show to The Reluctant Author, because I was in the same boat. I wrote a book only because people kept encouraging me to, because I'm a storyteller at heart. When I travel around the world regularly and give deeply technical presentations, and then I get to fun stuff. I get to talk about entrepreneurship, different audiences. But all of my presentations are based on storytelling. That's just how I like to be talked to. I like to tell stories. And in the electronics world, my professional world, that stands out like a sore thumb, because nobody does that. They all think I'm a little crazy, but they're all there. And, I can pack a room because my presentations are entertaining. The bar is low. So compared to highly technical, you just want to grind glass in your eyes sometime and get out of there rather than sit through another one. But, to me, the point is more not how much do I know, but how much will they receive? What sticks? Mm-hmm. And how do I make this? And I'm not dumbing it down. I'm just putting it in a different format that can be entertaining, because it could be boring and nerdy subject matter in an entertaining way. Why not? And I wrote my book, which has nothing to do with it's based on my professional career, but it's nothing to do with my professional career specifically. I don't even think I name the company in the book. I just talk about the type of business we're in. And it's really more entrepreneur based. And I find that I encourage a lot of business owners, if it makes sense to them, consider writing a book for a number of reasons. Don't necessarily consider writing a book to think it's going to be an income stream. That's a hard road. That's a hard road. I mean, you get some money, but it's not the difference between success and poverty. But number one, it kind of drives some street cred in certain circles. You're an author. Mm-hmm. It provides value. When I give speeches on entrepreneurship, mostly at universities, I ask whoever's bringing me there, how many students are going to be there, and I'll bring that many books and just give them away. So I'm not out to make money on the books, but you can hand a business card to somebody if people are still using business cards today. I think I ordered my last set of cards 10 years ago, and I still have some. No one gives business cards away anymore unless you're my age or older. They're all just like snapping their phones together and doing instant contact exchanges. But you give a business card to someone, and 10 minutes later, you see them like picking the food out of their teeth with the sharp edge of it. Give them a book. They may never read it, but they're not going to throw away a book. They're going to put it on a shelf or give it away, re-gift it. Mm-hmm. I think books make a lot of sense strategically outside of the value that's in the book. Did you get that experience in your company when you published the book? When you were peer pressured into publishing the book, did you experience a few unexpected benefits or accolades or opportunities?
Yeah. So as a professional speaker, having a book is very beneficial to have a book to probably put you a little bit higher on the list of candidates for a speaking gig. So that was very helpful. And honestly, there's 3 people who read the book that's in my local area. And whenever they talk about something, they'll be like, well, in Lisa's book, I learned that this. And so, like, I'm not even exaggerating. These people have read it like 2 or 3 times. And it's not because they didn't get it the first time. It was because as the business grows, they want like a refresher, because as your business grows, your marketing needs to grow. And your sales needs to be different, and your conversations need to be different, and your pitch needs to be different. And so it's a really good foundational understanding of sales and marketing for whatever level. Even if you're just starting the business, it's a good book to create that foundation. And so, and they're the ones who out there like, you got to buy Lisa's book. Or I have a friend who bought 10 of them. She's like, I give it to every new customer that I have, because in what she does as a business coach. And so what happens is that it becomes that street cred, like you said. It becomes this like a leg up when you're trying to get a gig for a professional speaker, and all of those. My husband calls it. He jokes around. It's like it's a very expensive business card, but it's the best way for me to get the name out there. Because to your point, they're not going to throw it away. They're either going to regift it, or it's going to sit on their shelves. And if it sits on their shelves, they still see it.
Yeah.
They still are reminded about this. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So I love it. I love having a book.
Yeah, so do I. You say many companies don't have a marketing problem. They have a clarity problem. What does that look like in real life?
So the example that I'd like to give is I was working with a roofing company, and they we're a roofing company. How hard is it, kind of a thing. But to differentiate themselves, it wasn't about, putting the roof on. These are commercial buildings. I asked the business owner, like, why roofing? Like, why do you have your own business, and why roofing? And I was really badgering about it. And of course, it's the first answer is money, or it's what I've always done, or that's where my education is. You always get that. Mm-hmm. But when we got down to it, it came to a past experience where he was in a building and the roof collapsed. And so for him, it was I like walking away from a job. Yeah. And knowing that the people inside are safe. So we built the entire his marketing campaign around safety. It's not about, it's more than a roof. It's about protecting your people and your business. And that differentiated him past that hit the emotional aspect of the business owner, not just the, I need a new roof. How much does it cost, right? Because that's the first thing. Yes, how much is it going to cost? And so for that reason, we built clarity around the fact that, we let the customers think differently about what they're actually getting.
Right.
And because we did that, it was easier to sell. And again, at that higher cost and higher value, because they understood that we're not in it just for the putting a roof on your commercial building. We're in it to make sure that everybody inside is safe. And it differentiated him from a lot of his competitors. And so that's a clarity of message. And another clarity of message is even in like your tagline. If you're a photographer and say, we take great photos, or is it we turn moments into memories? it just tells a different story. It's a clearer picture of like what the true value of your organization is. And so that's what I mean by you don't always need more marketing. Sometimes you just need a clearer message.
Why do founders and business owners often default to jargon and buzzwords, or as you like to call it, expert speak, instead of just clear language?
Fear. It's they're comfortable behind the language. It makes them feel like they're smart when actually they're confusing the customer. And so it's about fear of not being enough a lot of times when they use that. And so if they talking, and sometimes even they don't. I've worked with some people that are extremely smart and highly intelligent in their industry, but they're so intelligent they can't say it into simple terms. And so, working with those customers, they're like, "This is actually what you're doing." And he goes, "But that's too simple." I go, "It's easy for you because you're an expert. It's not easy for the person who's buying your services. So you need to keep it simple." And so it goes back to understanding the message that you're giving them is only as good as how well it's being received. You said that earlier.
Yeah.
And so understanding who your audience is, because the other problem is that what I see a lot of them do is they know the demographics. They know the industry, the title of the person they sell to. They know all the things that can be tracked, all the demographics. But they forget to think about the psychographics of why people of why people are actually out there buying, because the demographics tell you who's buying, but the psychographics tell you why they're buying.
Right.
And if you can get to the emotional aspect of why they're buying and use that in your messaging, it's going to be one, they're going to hear it more because it comes to the heart. And they're also going to have a better understanding, more clarity of why you're doing it in the first place.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You teach the power pitch framework. So 2 questions come from that. What is that? And the second is, what makes a strong pitch different from a scripted elevator pitch?
Well, we don't want to call it a sales pitch anymore because we're not selling anything in 30 seconds.
Right.
So let's stop calling it a sales pitch.
Elevators are going fast today. So yeah, the whole elevator pitch thing is kind of an outdated metaphor.
Yeah, and everybody's on their phone anyway, right? So nobody's talking in elevators.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the power pitch is finding out what the power words are, not to yourself, because I hate to tell you this, but you don't sell to yourself, you sell to other people. So what are the power words that other people want to hear? Like, what are the words that are going to grab their attention? And so we create a power pitch based on that. And the reason I call it a power pitch is that I compare it to baseball pitchers. Like, a pitcher doesn't stand on the mound and throw ball after ball after ball after ball after ball, right? It's a game of catch. The best networking conversations are when you say something so interesting, intriguing, funny, powerful that the person goes, "Tell me more." And then you have a conversation. They're not going to remember the show up and throw up 2-minute pitch you gave them,
right,
but they will remember the conversation that you had. And so that's why I call it a power pitch.
And what's the difference between a power pitch and what people are doing now? I guess is the better question.
Okay. Yes. So people do the show up and the throw up. You say, "What do you do?" And they keep talking and talking and talking and talking. Or they don't say enough, or they use the jargon. They hide behind the subject matter expert, right? And so what happens is that what makes a really good one is that you talked about how you help people. Not always like who you're helping, but it's just how you help people. Mm-hmm. I help organizations get more revenue, or the Nanny McPhee one worked for a really long time for me. I'm the Nanny McPhee of marketing. I help my clients until they need me and I'm gone. And you can say something funny, you can say something catchy, but what makes it really powerful is that they instantly say, "I want to know more about that." Or they,
I was just going to say, if you and I were at a cocktail party and I just said, "Hey, what's your name?" "Lisa." "Oh, I'm Mike." "What do you do, Lisa?" "I help people get more revenue." My first response would be, "Tell me more. What is that?" Or
right,
what does that
exactly.
mean? I would be now asking you for more information rather than you vomiting more information at me, right? Now it's It's an opt-in versus unsolicited.
Right. And so I was doing it for a young entrepreneurs group, the training for a young entrepreneurs group. And this very nice young man, Nate, just started a handyman business. And he did like all the things that he did. Like he just started listing all the things that he did. And so, but after we did the framework, the power pitch framework, his pitch is this. He says, my name is Nate. I'm a handyman. I do everything on your home to-do list you hate to do.
That's a good one.
And you're thinking about two or three things and automatically. And here's the other thing that I love about a power pitch is that when I train the power pitch framework, what we talk about is that you're not selling to the person you're talking to ever. If they buy from you, that's just bonus. What you're really doing is you're selling to the Rolodex. Now I'm dating myself.
Yeah, I know. For my
the
young
CRM,
audience, it's your contact list.
The Rolodex.
Yes.
The CRM in their head of, oh, I know somebody who needs that. That's what you're really, really doing is you're giving the information about how you solve problems, because more than likely they're going to think of somebody that needs what you are.
You want to be, quote unquote, the guy. I'll call a friend and go, hey, do you know any good plumbers? Oh, I got a guy. I know a guy, right? Boom. I call that person, guy or gal. It doesn't matter. But you want to be the go-to referral, right? Oh, I was talking to this gal named Lisa, and she really I don't need her services, but she really impressed me. Give her a call, right? So you're always selling either 1 degree of separation or 7 degrees of separation. At some point, it'll sell to Kevin Bacon, the whole 7 degrees of separation thing. My audience, I've just lost half my audience now. A lot of founders think market.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, you remember that. Yes, and the Rolodex. Yeah. A lot of founders think marketing means more posting, more ads, more emails, more visibility. When is more activity actually the wrong answer?
When it's so common that people don't even read it. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you a perfect example.
Therefore, it doesn't stand out.
Exactly. So I have a friend who's a travel agent, and she posts 2-3 times a day because that's what she was told to do. Mm-hmm. But it's just, it's another one of those posts. Oh, it's just another one of those posts. You just run by it. But when somebody doesn't post that often, and you follow them, it's like, oh, they made a post. I wonder what they're going to say. And so it's more about saying something intriguing and saying something that, to your point, educates instead of sells. So this is an old rule of thumb, but it's the rule of 4. It's educate, or inform, and then sell. Mm-hmm. So it's that ratio of do more informing and educating than you do selling.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What's the one practical thing a business owner can do now, this week, to make their message clearer? What's a good baby step?
A great baby step is to stop looking at it from your perspective and think of your best client. Like that client, if you had 10 more of them, your life would be golden. And you put yourself in their shoes, and then you read your marketing, your website, your social media posts, all of the things from their perspective. And is it about you or is it about them? Once you see that, some of it's going to be great. It's about them. But if it's too much about you, you need to start cutting back and taking those kinds of things out of your posts. The good news is that I had a client who was an actuary, and all of their stuff was.
What are the odds of that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And
bada bing.
so it was. But what happened was, like, it was so subject matter experty, it didn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. So the good news was they didn't have to reinvent the wheel. They just had to look at their blogs from the client's perspective and rewrite them, and then they reposted them. So they didn't have to rewrite anything. They just modified it so it's from the client's perspective, not from their perspective. It's not about, like, look how smart we are. Yeah. But it was about, like, we're smart, so you don't have to worry about these things.
Yeah. They spoke in the customer's language, more to speak than their own language, and that's something that I think every company falls into that trap. They speak their language because they're good at their language. They understand their language. They're the experts. Therefore, they talk like the experts. And sometimes we can overwhelm someone with TMI, too much information. And
Yeah.
that's not what they're asking. They got a problem. They need it fixed. They don't need to understand from a molecular level why this will fix it. They just need to have confidence it will fix it and have enough knowledge to understand the basics of why. That's at least my experience. Because I live in a community or I work in a community that is highly technical. You know, it's surrounded by PhDs and engineers and scientists of various sorts, and you know, they love data. They love going down technical rabbit holes. That's them. But the customer, on the other hand, they got 2,700 problems they got to solve today, and they don't have time to understand the granular detail of the problem or even the solution. They need to understand enough so that they can go, all right, yeah, that makes sense. Let's move forward. Okay, next problem, you know, and
Yep.
and we kind of have to know when to stop talking. I think the most powerful discipline in sales is knowing when to stop talking. And I think if the customer's not saying, yeah, I'm going to buy it, we just keep talking. And the customer just increasingly stops listening. And
Right.
even though you're talking, they're there, you think they're listening, they're out. They're out.
Yeah, there's
you'll
an
never
entire
get that
chapter
next
in the book
appointment.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I literally have an entire chapter about the whole you've got two ears in one mouth, use them proportionately, or
Yes.
it's the 70, you know, it's the if you're listening to respond, not to learn, all of those big mistakes. It was interesting. I recently read an article saying that introverts make better salespeople. You think
Yeah.
extroverts, right? Because they want to go out there, but it's
Right.
because they're better. They're better at building relationships because they
Yeah.
stop and listen.
Well, they
Yeah,
don't
I
like
thought it
to
was
speak
very
so much, so their
interesting.
words are rationed and carefully discerned because they don't want to just chit chat. They just kind of want to get in and get out of there as soon as possible because they don't like talking. So, yeah, so their words are going to be very select, very choice, very effective, to the
Yeah,
point, without
yeah.
all the noise. What's next for Rebel Girl Marketing, soon to be Rebel Girl Revenue? What's next for you?
So what I've done is I've created a process. So I've productized my services. So, you know, over the 8 years, I've tried, you know, it's all about trial and error sometimes.
Sure.
And some things worked, some things didn't work. And so I've productized and systematized what I do in a way that it's a lot clearer for, because the companies that I work for, usually it's not just the business owner, it's a business owner and their operations person, or it's a business owner and their head of sales, or sorry, it's the head of marketing. And what we do is it creates clarity amongst roles and how they work with each other. So the premise that I'm working on, which is another reason why Rebel Girl Revenue makes more sense, is that every role touches revenue. And when you understand how your job is impacted by the people on the left of you and the right of you, and how it impacts the customer, you have a better understanding of your impact. And once you understand your impact on both the customer and on the company, you're more engaged, you're more productive, you're more innovative. It's amazing the things that happens in these companies when every role understands how they touch revenue. And so that's the next big thing with me, is that I've been doing it all along, but I've actually systematized and productized it where it's very repeatable. And that's what I also train the people internally to do. So when they're having a problem, they just go back to the system. They go back to the process and say, okay, we're having this problem. Why are we having this problem? Let's start with the Rebel system of like, okay, let's find out what it is. And so I love the fact that, you know, again, it's kind of like a train the trainer. I teach my customers how to do this internally. So again, eventually they don't need my services because they got it. And then every once in a while they come back for
Yeah, they need a
refresher
refill.
courses,
Yeah, sure.
or they have new employees and
Right.
I need to do some onboarding with them. But it's great because they stop thinking about sales. It's, you know, I always say it's sales and marketing, not sales or marketing, and
Right.
how it all works together. And once they understand the timeline, the customer service, the customer experience timeline, they like start seeing it more linear instead of just do this.
Yeah.
Nobody really wants to be told what to do, but they want to know why it matters.
Sure.
And that's the whole premise of this new training.
Yeah, excellent. Last question, because we're about out of time. You've been
Okay.
around 8 years. How did you define success 8 years ago when you first started your business, and how do you define it today?
Well, like most people, when they first start a business, is someone's willing to pay me for what I do. Great, sign them up.
Check. Yeah.
There was no vetting. There was just,
Right.
oh,
We've all been
you
there.
chase the almighty dollar. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. To your point earlier, you talked about you got the wrong clients. The, they were the people you really didn't want to work with, but they were
Yep.
willing to pay you because you didn't understand your business yet, which is why I love being in business for this long, is that I know exactly who I want to work with. I know exactly my triggers when I meet somebody, if I know they're going to be a good client or not. And I love the fact that when I do prospecting, I don't sell when I prospect. I might have a one-on-one meeting with somebody who could be, but I provide so much value that they're just like, when can you start?
Yeah.
It's never about like, this is what I do and this is how I do it and this is what, it's very much about these are these are the outcomes. What are the most immediate needs that you have? And I solve a little bit of the problem immediately so they see the value. And that's the best way for me to sell. Not to talk about what I know and my education, my certifications and all of that. It's more about when you go back to the office and you can't stop thinking about me,
Yeah.
which sounds a
So
little weird in this conversation, but I think you know where I'm going
I
with
know
that.
exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. So how would you define success now? So it went from getting a customer money, being able to have a business that actually attracts customers that can pay. How has it changed, if it has, today? I mean, you're not worried
It
about getting
absolutely
one
has.
customer anymore, right? So you're
No,
past that part.
no. Yes. But what I love I define success is that when a customer calls me, is that I'm not like, oh, they're calling me. It's and I the revenue follows. So I've always said that revenue and money, Simon Sinek says the same thing. Revenue and money is the outcome of doing great work. And so I just focus on doing great work, and people pay me like what my starting the rate versus the rate I have now is exponentially higher. And so the revenue definitely increased, but I have fewer clients. But
Yeah.
the revenue is still increasing because I
Yeah.
do really good work for the people that I want to do it for, and they keep adding what they want to do with me. So the revenue keeps increasing because I pick the right clients.
Yeah. I think that's a mistake a lot of businesses make, including mine in the early days. I used to chase revenue because we had to, we pay once a week. I had to cover payroll on a Thursday. So on Monday, my bookkeeper would go, Mike, we're short. So I would chase revenue. I'd bring in revenue, although it would land on profit because it wasn't profitable revenue, but I could bring in money, no problem. And anytime I chased a specific KPI, it was at the expense of another. And then I eventually learned through some good mentorships and all that, that very similar to what you said, to me, revenue, profit, market share, whatever KPI, choose a KPI, are not the result of chasing revenue, market share, profit,
No.
whatever KPI. They're a result of making great decisions. And in your case, doing great work. But
Yep.
to me, all those things are scorecards to the decision-making process, to the quality of work that you're doing. And if you're doing a certain type of work and your revenue just isn't there, look at the type of work you're doing. In my example, I'd say look at the decisions we're making. If we're making great decisions, we know they're great decisions because look at all the KPIs, they're all up. And if they're not, let's go back and look at our decision model and tweak
Right.
it until we see the results of that through the KPIs. Never chase a KPI. Never chase a single KPI
Yep.
because you will accomplish it at the expense of something else. I've said this on the show many, many times, and I'll kind of close with this. I used to fly airplanes, a licensed pilot. And when I was training, like every pilot ever is trained the same way. You do three things at the same time when you're flying a plane. You aviate, you navigate, and you communicate. And most of the commercial airplane accidents are the result of a flight crew failing to do all three at the same time. They got a problem in the cockpit. They got a warning light. They're so deep in the weeds of trying to figure out what's going on, they failed to aviate. They hit the mountain. Or they didn't notice their altitude was lowering and they hit the ground. Or, I mean, it's something that would have otherwise been non-fatal, only they stopped doing all three. And I think there is a equivalent to aviate, navigate, communicate in business. And if you concentrate on one problem, if you stop whatever the business equivalent of aviating, navigating, or communicating is, you're going to metaphorically hit that mountain or hit the ground unexpectedly. Yeah. Even though you were doing everything you could to solve one problem, you just weren't watching the entire business. And I think that was a lesson I learned, because I realized I'm capable of bringing in more money. I'm capable of getting more market share. I'm capable of all these things. Not all at the same time. Not that way.
Right.
So, that makes a lot of sense. I loved when you said that you didn't use the word scorecard, but something similar, that, profit and revenue is really a result of doing great work. It's the same exact mindset, which is nice to hear someone else say it. It's not just the world according to Mike. So every once in a while, I feel validated doing the show.
And to your point, I think communicate should always be there. Whatever the other two can change, but I believe communication is valid 100% of the time for 100% of the problem that you're trying to solve. Yes, 100%.
And we just got to find out what the business equivalents of aviate and navigate are. But you're right, communication is definitely key. Well, Lisa, thanks so much for being my guest today. For my audience, if you're watching this on YouTube and you want to find out more about Raebel Girl Marketing or Raebel Girl Revenue or Raebel Girl Enterprises, whatever, as the company morphs and grows and transforms into what it is, now and in the future, if you are watching this on YouTube, right below me, it says see more. Click that, and the URL to all that will be there, as well as links to her book. And I think, is your workbook online as well? You have your book.
The workbook is on the website.
Okay. So go to the website. I'll also provide links to the book itself. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, don't do it while you're driving. We don't want to lose subscribers. Not that way. When it's safe to do so, go to your podcast app, look at the show notes, and all that information will be there. Lisa, Raebel Girl Marketing, and whatever you become in the future, thank you so much for the generosity of your time, sharing your journey with me and my audience, and providing very sage, well-proven marketing advice and revenue-enhancing advice for me and my audience. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're quite welcome, and thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right, here are some final thoughts. I really appreciate Lisa's message that she's not telling entrepreneurs to chase the next shiny marketing tactic. She's telling them to slow down long enough to get clear about who they serve, clear about the problem they solve, clear about the value they bring, and clear enough that their customers, their team, and even their referral partners can understand it. That's such an important lesson for entrepreneurs, because so many of us try to market our way out of confusion. We add more activity, more content, more tools, more noise, and more pressure, when what we really need is a clearer message. And I think that's a great reminder for every entrepreneur that's listening or watching this episode. Before you spend more money on marketing, make sure people can actually understand what you do and why it matters. Now, that is a wrap. Thanks for being part of our Reluctant Entrepreneur family. We've been very busy recording future episodes with amazing guests, so be sure to subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop. If you're an entrepreneur or know someone who would make a great guest, of course, we'd love to hear from you. Visit reluctantentrepreneur.podcast.com, where you can apply or recommend a guest or just learn more about the show. And a couple of shameless plugs. I've started a new series under the Reluctant Entrepreneur brand. The new series is called Reluctant Lessons When Businesses Go Wrong. On this series, we dig into high-profile business failures and the story behind it all. So far, we've profiled numerous companies, including Rubbermaid, Kodak, Blockbuster, BlackBerry, Toys R Us, DeLorean Motor Company, and many more, with even more to come. There's no shortage. Check them out on this channel. And if you're interested in my book, The Reluctant Entrepreneur, Anatomy of a Business Startup from Uncertainty to Unstoppable, it's available in paperback and Kindle versions on Amazon and as an audiobook on both Audible and Amazon. And to everyone listening or watching, if you find yourself stepping into entrepreneurship, whether by choice or by circumstance, remember this. Sometimes the path we never planned becomes the journey we were meant to take. Thank you all so much for being here. I truly appreciate all of you, and I'll see you again soon.